Thank you. Roll call, please.
Cleary,
Here.
Haney,
Here.
Harvey,
Here.
Hawk,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Pierce,
Here.
Grist,
Did Beth answer?
Mm-mm.
I think that's her number up there. So
I thought I saw her number, but
That's Mike.
okay. All right. Moving on, we have the meeting minutes from the Finance Committee meeting of January 28th, 2021, and the regular council meeting minutes of January 28th, 2021. Are there any errors, omissions, additions to those minutes? I have one. Marta, I don't know where it resides, but in the stack of legislation that I signed and the meeting minutes before that, I submitted a letter from the mayor regarding the Income Tax Review Board and Mark Dickus's appointment. If you could include that, or if we can't find it, if Sam could get that to you, just to include in communications for our next agenda, please. Any others? Hearing none, those meeting minutes will stand as approved. Next is audience participation. If you would like to address the Ironton City Council, or you have concerns to do so now. I can't see all of you, so you may have to. Chris, I'll see you. I think you're muted, Chris.
Yeah, I have one. It's once again regarding zoning. Zoning issue, zoning question. Dave Laws is questioning a house on it's 1024 South 4th Street. He seems to think it is a Suboxone prescription distribution house. I guess that would be a way to call it. And he would like to see if we could look in to the business in that house. He doesn't think it meets the requirements to be in that zone. That's all I've got.
Did you give the address for that, Chris?
10-4.
I know.
What is it?
I spoke to him yesterday.
Okay.
But I'll write down the address though. I know where.
Yeah, 1024 South 4th. I appreciate it. I told him I'd get it in the meeting minutes. So.
If I could add to yours, Chris, when they first started moving in, that was, I think, Dave Lawless's parents' house, and they bought it cheap at an auction.
Yep.
And he'd come to me, and we talked about it. And I mean, it doesn't look like the typical type house they use. When I say that, it's because, that's 4 blocks above me on 4th Street, and I go out that street 4 or 5 times a day going to the tool rental. And there is most of the houses have certain cars you get used to seeing them, like Holtz-Apple's house running out the street from them. Always the same vans or cars sitting there. That house always has different cars, and they're always 99% of the time they're parked the wrong way. They pull over. They don't stay on their side of the street. They pull over on the curb side at the house. And it just looks like it's just not very well maintained. And what he's saying about being a Suboxone distribution thing may be why, because when you deal, it's hard to talk about, sort of, because you don't want to be talking bad about people. But it seems like people that's doing that or using it, they don't have a lot of respect for the law, and they just pull in there any way, shape, or form, and it really creates a driving hazard. But Mayor, if you said, I think I heard you say you've already been talking to Dave and looking into it. Is that correct?
Well, I just spoke with him last night, so we will look into it.
Well, like I said, I'm by there half dozen times a day, and if I would suggest, if
down a little bit.
talking to me, okay, I would suggest that maybe you could have the police keep an eye on the parking, because even though whatever they're doing there, they need to follow the guidelines and the law on which side of the street to park on and how close to the corner, and that would be a start if they thought somebody was watching.
And in regards to that, Bob, Dave also owns the driveway that's next to that house, and they park in that driveway illegally as well. That's not part of that house. It's part of Dave's house. And originally before, I didn't know any of this about the Suboxone, but it takes all the emotion out of it when it's a zoning issue, because it's not zoned for that. It takes all the emotion out of it. Whether you agree, disagree, whether you feel sorry for, don't feel sorry for, doesn't matter. It's a zoning issue. It takes all the emotion out of it. So if Sam's looking into that, and if we could follow up, at least Dave's part of his frustration was also with parking and them taking his driveway there, and the noise in and out all hours of the night. So we also have those nuisance laws. So I think there's multiple ways that we could address it.
Yeah. My only question would be, maybe for Brigham, would be is, are we allowed to enforce parking issues on private property? Or would that be it on Dave to do that?
Well, I mean, if they're blocking his ingress and egress, then yes, you can.
Not blocking, but I'm talking about parking. I think you all said they're parking in that driveway.
That would still be blocking.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trespassing in addition to the traffic violation.
okay. All right.
Well, it's not unusual to see 8 or 10, 12 people on the front porch when it's nice out. I mean, just like a whole gang out there. So understand Dave's frustration.
The others?
Yeah, I can contribute if you want, since we're talking about parking already.
Go ahead.
Well, I've been meeting with a lot of the downtown business owners, and parking is continuing to become an issue for us as, businesses start to expand and, develop downtown. And we really need to jump on this issue as soon as possible. They've asked, I don't know if you guys looked at the old parking ordinance, but it's very outdated. It's talking about meters and everything else in it. I mean, it really just needs, amended or repealed or whatever. And the recommendation that we're coming up with right now at the moment is a 2-hour parking in zones downtown. And also, this is something that we have Joe Sokol and them working on, smart city parking system, like traffic can monitor that. That way we don't have to hire any additional personnel to monitor the traffic. It monitors the license plates. It will send a bill automatically if we wanted to bill people, but my recommendation and their recommendation is we use an ordinance that has a violation more so. So if you're violating, maybe the first time you get a warning or however we want to set it up. But long term, maybe it's like, well, after you violated X amount of times, you're going to have to pay a fine ordinance. But there is a big need for some kind of control over the parking because of businesses you have a lot of employees downtown that are taking up a lot of the parking for our businesses. I wanted to put that on your radar, and I think the first step we could take, though, is at least putting the 2-hour parking in place downtown.
I agree with that. I would like to get with Kevin and kind of look over some things with the one-way streets with the diagonal parking on the side streets. I know that's been brought up quite a bit back in the fall, it seems like. But I'd like to maybe have some type of study or, just some research on how many spots we could add if we went one way back and forth like Ashland does.
There is the Kiowa parking study that's available on their website, and that's kind of what we're going based off of as well. There's a more temporary need to we need to, start somewhere right now because it is getting bad. Down 3rd Street, 2nd Street, Center Street, especially, those are the ones that are really, pretty full.
Excuse me, Sam. So you're saying that the employees of the businesses are taking up the parking spots for the clientele?
A lot of the time. Then you also have second floor tenants, everything else. Everybody, it's just, we need just a 2-hour parking zone from a certain time of the day, to keep things open, keep things flowing at least.
I see. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you the 2-hour parking will only create problems unless you do like the smart meters or smart town. I've never heard of that, but I'm sure it's probably out there because back in the day, we had meters in the whole city and had Carolyn Sheridan. She's the meter maid, and that job actually paid for itself. It paid her as a police officer. It paid for the vehicle she drove, and then there was a change of administration. First thing he done was cut down all the meters, and they talked about putting up 2-hour parking, which is excellent, except what you'll run into when you got all these 2-hour parking, if you don't have some way to mark tires or something and record it, and then that's going to take an extra police officer or something. But the most number one call you'll get is it'll be the people in the store. I'm trying to use Sam on this. They'll be calling the mayor's office saying, these 2 cars have been sitting out here all day, and we want you to come down and take care of it. They're violating the 2-hour meter or the 2-hour parking. And if you look into it, it'll be the store next door's employees, that's doing that. I'll tell you the one I think is really the most successful one after we took the mirrors out was Joe Unger's. Because Joe, he parks over in the city parking lot. All of his employees do. I think he'd probably fire somebody that worked for him and tried to park in front of his store.
I would agree.
But Joe does a wonderful job. But it's, if you go to put the signs up, you got to have a plan on how to enforce them, because somebody is going to call numerous times and tell you so-and-so's car's been parked here all day.
Yeah, and that would be up to, I agree with you. And that'd be up to us. This system would be a universal system. If you want it to send warnings, it'll send warnings. If you want it to send violations, if you want to have a meter system installed there for people to enter their license plate and purchase so much time, you can do all that. So it's going to be more flexible with how we see it works. But yeah, when they call, it's going to be, they're going to get something in the mail. It's not like we can, just go chalk.
Yeah.
do anything. It's going to be something that they find out about at a later day. But it would eliminate us having to create any full-time employees or anything dedicated to that. This is just a billing system that is automated through the traffic cameras that we would have. And so we could go with 2-hour parking, which is what the business community would like to see, or we could go with a metered system. Either one. I think we need to really find out if the billing that we get for sending out these violations is going to be cost efficient or not. If it's not, then we're probably going to have to look at meters to do that kind of thing.
I have no problem at all with putting meters back up. I think it was a good system, but people complained, and within first 2 or 3 weeks that they took them all out. The courthouse in particular, they moved and into every parking space all the way around the block of the courthouse. And then when they built the new bank on the corner out there on Fifth and Park, well, then that really, because that was a parking lot, and a lot of people used it for the courthouse. Now it's a bank, and it's terrible trying to get a parking spot if you need to run in the courthouse. But my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
Mayor, do you have anything else for council?
I just need a short executive session for pending litigation with council, solicitor, and Brett Thomas.
Okay, I've got 2 things. All council members have a envelope sitting in front of their desks that's marked confidential first class mail, and sorry to betray their confidence, but just so you know, you don't have to rush to pick it up. It's just a letter from a group called Citizen Serve, and citizenserve.com to offer service for online processing of permitting, planning and zoning, code enforcement, licensing, and inspection. It's a cloud-based system, to summarize. There's even a little scan me code that you can use and pull it up on your phone if you choose to do so. But I wanted you to know that those were in here, just in case you wanted to stop and pick it up and peruse that information. Secondly, I got a packet in the mail with a letter and photos that I'll submit as part of the communications for our next agenda packet from Rayetta Waldo, and I've actually scanned this document and sent it on to the solicitors today. I know they haven't had time to give it a thorough review because I sent it today, so but I'll summarize it by basic. It's a 3-page letter and a bunch of pictures, but the letter basically is addressing Rayetta's property on 0 or Ritchie Road, and it's 34 acres, I believe, of non-inhabited land. That there is 1 parceled land that her daughter and son-in-law now have that is in the city limits. The rest of it is actually considered in the city limits, and she is requesting that we detach or de-annex the rest of that property for multiple reasons that are outlined in this. She mentions the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 709, and there's certain qualifications to de-annex, and there's those 4 qualifications. She meets all of them with that property. And just a little background about that property specifically, when she deeded that parcel to her daughter and son-in-law, she had a lot of issues with trying to get city services set up out there, with particularly with sanitary. At one point, not during your administration, Sam, but at one point was recommended even to do a septic because they were having so many issues trying to get sanitary out there to them. But as well, you may not be aware, but sanitary a septic system is not acceptable in the city limits. Also, that property has some coyotes and wildlife and plenty of deer, but you can't shoot a gun in the city limits either. So all that stuff is listed in here. And I had a brief conversation with Brigham, not an official opinion, but just a brief conversation about that. And because my first thought was that probably needs to go to the annexation committee, even though it's de-annexation, to get a recommendation. Chris, I don't know if you remember, but you're the chair of that committee. And so I asked just what process from the solicitors, so be looking for that opinion, because prior to the next meeting, we may have to call an annexation committee meeting to give that a favorable or unfavorable recommendation. It also requires an ordinance that I said I would sponsor to get it on the agenda to discuss. I specifically asked Rayetta if there were any plans to make any other dwellings out there, and she said that she has actually, for many years, tried to think of utilization of that land, like make a subdivision, that kind of thing for that land, since it is within the city limits. But it would be cost prohibitive as far as the infrastructure, putting it out there, the roads, putting it out there, the amount of lots that she could get out of that. So they don't plan on doing anything with that land other than leaving it rural, forested area. If you've ever been out there, it is rural, uninhabited, forested area that really shouldn't be in the city limits. That's just my opinion. But anyway, I wanted you all to know that is going to be part of our communications next time. I'll send that packet on to the rest of you all, but I didn't want to send it unprompted without any context. So, Sam, I see your hand up.
Yeah, on the first thing you brought up, we're actually implementing a code enforcement software and stuff, just so everyone knows that we didn't ignore them. But we've been on that process for over a year almost. But secondly, is this a hillside?
There's multiple hills. It's actually two hills valley.
Would the storm water from that hill contribute to our flows inside the city that come through on 141?
It runs into a creek. I can tell you that.
Yeah, there's a lot of runoff, I'm guessing, the storm water that's coming from that property too. But I'm just...
Yes, it does. Hey, Craig, I got a statement for that property.
Go ahead, Brett.
The one parcel that you didn't mention is tied to the city sewer and gets city water.
Yeah, and I guess also, there were numerous issues when they were putting that parcel, where they're building on that parcel. Another one is that there's a fire hydrant there at the end of Orrichie Road, but it can't reach the entire property, and the water pressure wouldn't allow them to even put out a fire at the end of that property. If that is the case, she had told me that Moose told her they could only go up to 500 feet with their hoses, so they can't even reach the majority of that acreage. So if there was a fire, they wouldn't even be able to put it out with city services. So there's a lot to consider, but I wanted you all to be aware of it was dropped off to me, and I'll send it out to you all, and wanted you to have some context to go along with that.
I worked with her I don't know, a couple years ago when they were building that house for her daughter. And the sewer line, what they done back in the day, the sewer line, say you got a 12-inch, and then as you go up this road, another 300 feet, it could went down to a 10-inch or an 8-inch. I don't know what the final size was, but that sewer line was right against the edge of her property, and it's in the city, and she wanted the sewer line from the house they're building to tie into it. And it was a major deal because we had sewer people looking at it, and they're talking about they don't know if that house would make the line overflow or flood or whatever. But we got all that worked out, and they built the house, beautiful home. And they did tie in, they had to go through the creek and then tie into the end of it was actually, they came up and just dead ended, and they had to tie into that dead end. And it seemed like, and then the water is no issue at all because they had the fire plugs. But it's quite an ordeal to get it. And, if you were thinking of putting another house or two up through there, which I talked to Red a couple of weeks ago and told her to get a hold of you, Craig. But, they probably would almost have to have a pump station or something if they're going to go into the city sewer line, because there just wasn't hardly enough capacity left even for the one house.
Yeah, and also I failed to mention that the last part of the letter talks about how you request a de-annexation, and you can do that through the local city legislature via ordinance, which is what she's requesting us do. But that if we reject that there is also the option to go through court, and she mentions the four factors that weigh in that decision, and that she meets all of those criteria. So anyway, I'll let you all glance at that and get an opinion from Brigham and Mack on the process that needs to follow. But anyway, I just wanted you all to be aware that I did get that packet. I will sponsor the legislation so we can talk about it, and we'll get an opinion from the solicitors on the process that needs to follow. And just to remind Chris, because we never really talk about annexation, that you're the chair of that committee, so it may need one of those committee meetings to give that a recommendation.
If you do an ordinance on that, Craig, I'll get on there with you.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Any other audience participation? Moving on to communications, there are none. And just a reminder, Mayor, if you don't care to forward your letter about the Income Tax Review Board regarding Mark Dickus to MARTA, or put it in the stack of legislation that she receives from tonight, I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Reports, there are none. Ordinances, there are none. Resolution, if the clerk could please read Resolution 2103 by title only.
2021 salary resolution establishing salaries for non-union employees.
Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to make a mention that it got favorable recommendations from the Finance Committee. And I guess I'd go ahead and make a motion that we pass Resolution 2103. And is this where we need to add John Devon, her name?
We can do that in miscellaneous, Bob.
Okay.
Chris.
Can we have discussions?
Yeah. Did you second first?
Second.
I'll second.
Yep. Discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just kind of, Craig, for one, I appreciate all the time because I know you spearheaded the resolution and getting crunching all those numbers and everything else. So thank you for spending your time and working on that so diligently. Another thing, just kind of something that kind of irked me and was disappointing that we had some negative comments and negativity from people that are involved in the resolution. The thing about it is, I've been current career for over a decade, and there's been times to where the insurance goes up and we don't get a raise, but you work very hard on this and made sure that the increase was offset and nobody was going to be upset. But I don't understand the fact that somebody being upset about getting a raise. I can't comprehend the fact that somebody is upset about making more money. Now, if it's, obviously if it wasn't enough, then maybe somebody should work harder and show supervisors that they work more or something. But to receive a pay increase and complain was really disappointing. And I thought about voting no on this, or voting no, or trying to amend this. But I don't want to hold up the progress of other people that are deserving a raise, getting a raise, and I don't want to hold up the progress on your resolution that you work so hard on. So I am going to vote yes on it, but it's just disappointing to hear some concerns and complaints from the people.
Chris, other discussion? Roll call, please.
Cleary,
Aye.
Haney,
Aye.
Harvey,
Aye.
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2103 passes. Next, we have miscellaneous, and Chris, in finance, before you joined, we were talking about the organizational meeting of December 1st, 2021, whenever the new council is sworn in, and we go through the positions that council appoints. We typically do that every 2 years during that organizational meeting, unless someone's terminated or resigns or whatever. But we were talking about how during that time, I've never seen it during my time on council, but we need to add the civil service clerk to that organizational meeting and appoint the civil service clerk. I'll remind you of that, Chris, because for the organizational meeting, you'll need the setup of that. I'll remind you of that, but I just wanted to put that seed in your head just so you are aware of that. And I think Bob was going to none of us could remember council appointing the civil service clerk, so I think Bob was going to take care of that here in miscellaneous in just a second. But the opinion that we got was that the civil service clerk really should be included in the salary resolution because it's paid by the city, it's appointed by the council, and it's a non-union position. So, Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we add John Devon or appoint her as the civil service clerk and add it to the salary resolution list.
Chris,
I guess with her salary, whatever.
I'll second Bob's motion.
discussion. Roll call, please.
Cleary,
Aye. Aye.
Haney,
Aye.
Harvey,
Aye.
Hawk,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
They're miscellaneous.
Greg.
I saw
I'm-
Chris. I couldn't see you. Hang on. I saw Chris first because you weren't on the
Okay.
screen.
I didn't know if everybody got the email I sent with the quotes about the leaf collection equipment. And like I said, that's just a quote. And if anybody knows that was the only person that I could find. If anybody knows any other companies or anything, please let me know, and I'll contact them and try to get together maybe the best prices we can find. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I did email that out to you. And if you have any other companies that have anything to do with that kind of stuff, let me know, please.
Can you fix your
Chris?
plate now we're done?
Chris,
Yep.
I don't know about anyone else,
Yeah.
but on my email, those quotes did not come through. You may want to send those again as an attachment.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. But thank you for the work on that. I know what you go through getting those quotes and all that. So thanks for that.
I went from Georgia to Michigan to Canton and finally Louisville or Lexington. So yeah, I got to run around a little bit, but
I might let
finally
them in.
got some numbers.
What's called?
Did you did you ask Jeff Townsend if he? It seems like something that would be in his wheelhouse. Did you ask him if he had any suggestions on somebody that did that kind of thing?
No, I did not. But now this company, I can ask. I'll ask him. But this company said they worked with municipalities, and they understood where we were along the river and things like that. And they understood EPA mandates and things like that. So it sounded like they worked with, a lot of, towns along the river that are looking for equipment like this. So they said they gather up their references from other municipalities and send that to us if we would take any further action on this. So they're willing to give us whatever information we need. It's just I didn't know how far you guys wanted to look into this.
Thanks, Chris. Nate.
Yes, I just kind of wanted to have Marta make part of the minutes, and John sent this email out earlier from Mike Burns from Baird. Just his check-in that we are in compliance with our bond covenants for the wastewater storm bond. So I don't know if you can just make that part of the minutes. And then also I'd like to make a motion to go to executive session, discuss litigation with Mayor, Solicitor, and Brett Thomas.
Can I?
No action. I'm sorry.
Real quick.
Yeah.
All right. I want to make part of the minutes that Terry Smith gave that letter to Craig already, and it should be on his desk. The income tax letter. I'm kidding about making it part of the minutes there.
Oh, yeah. No, I gave it after I signed everything. I gave it back in that stack, so it's probably in the stack of
We'll get
Mike. Mike, did I hear you second?
You did.
Roll call, please.
Cleary. Cleary.
Aye.
Haney.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Hawk,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Y'all for joining us this evening.
No.